Oh, here we go. Errors. Please don't do this.
It's live on my end.
Is it?
Yeah.
We are live. There are no errors. This is the Highbury squad. Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome. It has been one of those technological crazy days, but we are online. We're here live, and welcome to another what hopefully will be a great week. Here we go.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
Good evening, boys and girls, and welcome to another live edition of the Highbury Squad. Let's not talk about WhatsApp today, Kev. Let's not talk about Facebook. We finally managed it here because, by the way, StreamYard was down for a couple of hours this morning too. But welcome back to the show, Mr. Super Kev, Super Kevin Campbell.
How are you, Soph? You good?
Absolutely brilliant. Yes, absolutely brilliant.
Squaddies. Good to see ya. And at ease for this big show.
We do have a big show lined up for you this evening. We are waiting for the legend that is Mr. Bob Wilson to join us. Good evening, everybody in live chat. We hope you had a fabulous weekend. Kev, everyone missed you. 2 minutes late. We weren't 2 minutes late. Technology was 2 minutes late. We were on time, I'll have you know. Kev, everyone missed you after the Brighton game. You had a good weekend. Everything cool? Nice weekend for you?
Good weekend. Yeah, good weekend. Working weekend. Everything's very good. And got a pretty busy week this week. So
yes.
Even better.
The international break, Kev. The timing of it. It's like just when things are getting heated up again, we got to take a break. Can't stand
it's the same
it.
for everyone, as they say, Soph, isn't it? It's the same for everyone. So, for us, it's a bit of momentum at times. Although we didn't play great, that game 4 weeks previous, we lose.
You
and
think?
by hook or by crook, Soph, we get over the line. We get over the line with a point. So for me, it's a point gained. We didn't play well. We were nowhere good enough in midfield, etc. But you know what tends to be the foundation? That defense.
It's starting to build that way, isn't it? It's starting to, that momentum, that relationship, the one relationship that we've really been pining for, not only in midfield, but also at the back, Kev. And you could argue that Gabriel and Ben White did enough to put Brighton off. I mean, Brighton had 22 shots and only 2 of them on target. If their finishing was better, Kev, my goodness, that would have been a completely different story. Their finishing was absolute garbage in that game, and we benefited from it. But with that said,
I do think problem.
There were moments where Gabriel and Ben White also distracted the forward line and put themselves in really good positions, Kev, to make sure that they were in the right moments at the right time.
Yeah, look, like I say, that partnership we're starting to see come form a little bit. It's like I said, I think on Friday we said it. We're not where we want to be just yet, so we can have indifferent performances, but the key is we still see the right traits, we still see the fight, we still see, even though things were going against us, Sophie, one thing we couldn't say the team laid down and died. We couldn't say that the team wasn't all in. So you walk away with a point. I've played in many of those ones, Soph, let me tell you. Many of those, easily forgettable. You get a point, you move forward. Simple as that.
Yes.
You don't even remember the game because it was so bad.
Well, look, I do agree with you. And by the way, I'm not ignoring KC when he's talking. I'm on the phone because I am trying to help the legend that is Bob Wilson get into the stream. And Kev, Kev, StreamYard doesn't support Safari. So for everyone who's listening, the ledge is downloading Google Chrome as we speak, and he will be with us
Bless him. He's a top
shortly.
guy. Yeah, top. Man.
But Kev, you're right, because the question has been, was it 2 points dropped, 1 point gained? Was it 2 dropped for Brighton? I definitely think if you're a Brighton fan, you're thinking, wow, how did we walk away from that game not winning it? Yeah. And so for us, I think you just need those moments. We haven't had a lot of luck in recent times. We've always said that, can you play ugly? And sometimes, winning ugly is beautiful as well. And for me, it's the consistency, Kev. The Aubameyang going back to not so good Aubameyang, reliant again on Saka and Emile Smith-Rowe, Odegaard not having a great game, but at the same time in the first, 20 minutes, I was just on Tom's channel too. People need to start reading him better, Kevin. He's so smart and he's always thinking ahead. And I just think sometimes it slows us down a little bit because they're not on his wavelength. Not everyone's a smart footballer like him.
And it takes, Sophie, it takes a bit of time. It does take a little bit of time. We want it to be consistent how we really want it. It just doesn't work that way, unfortunately. We've been in the doldrums such a long time that we want everything microwaved. We want it pinged, that it just happens. Doesn't work that way. We're seeing traits in this team that we can hold on to. I know there's still, the team were poor and this, that, the other. I leave that to people and that's their opinion. But I know what I see. I'm seeing a team who are willing to fight, at least. And you know what? I'll take that all day long for now. I'll take that. Yeah. And you're right, Nobby. It is a point earned. They earned that. Even though they didn't play well, they earned that point.
Yeah, Winston says 2-3 wins out of 4 games. Not many teams have done that. I'll take it. And the truth is, Kev, look at how inconsistent Man United are right now. And they signed the great Ronaldo, and apparently they were going to win the league when that happened. Look at Villa. You win at Old Trafford and you get a phenomenal result. And then you go to Tottenham and you lose. Tottenham lose horribly against us, beat Villa. Look at Leicester City. Even this show, I was lauding Leicester's business in the summer. Lauding it, I was.
Hold on, let me turn the oven up a bit.
No, there's no Leicester humble pie for me.
No, there's just a massive humble pie in there. I'm just turning it up a little bit, that's all.
We're going to have to cut it in quarters, though.
Quarters?
What's your
quarter's going to be that size.
I was just wondering, I was thinking to myself, what is Kev's humble pie slice? What would that be? I'm trying to think of it. Struggling a bit, to be honest with you.
Because I tend to, I try to be level, because I don't get too upset really about stuff unless it's stuff that you trigger me on. So and I have to start raising my voice about the players. But again, it is the players, right? It is the players. And we didn't see Thomas Partey perform. We didn't really see Odegaard. And obviously there's other factors to all that. But we should be better. We weren't. And we got a point. And you know what? If you said after 3 games, if you said we'd take 10 points out the next 12, would you have taken that, Soph?
Well, I mean, you and I had us on 20 points after the first 10. How many games was it?
Hold on. But the question was after the first 3 games where we had no points, no goals, no nothing. Did we even get a corner? Right?
No. I mean,
but if somebody had said you'd get 10 points out the next 12, would you take it? Would have snapped their hand off.
Yeah, I mean, especially the way that we started, and clearly,
I'd won the league. I was like Spurs. I'd won the league at the end of August.
I think I may have a little slice of humble pie for you. I found something, and that is the question of Aubameyang, because you've always stood by him, said he's our best player. You got to play your best players.
He's our best goal scorer. Yeah.
Our best goal scorer.
Yep.
But at some point, I would love to see Arteta show a little bravery. And if Aubameyang is not going to be consistent, Kev, and he's not going to bang in the goals, and we need goals, he's got to score. It's football. Drop him.
But he's done that, hasn't he? He has dropped him.
But I mean, in this season with this team in this side, I think it's important that you don't just start. You don't just play because you're going to play. Yeah,
no, that's fair. That's fair. And look, at the end of the day, the position should be earned on merit. Yeah, the starters to start with are the main players. But if the main players are not doing the business, then there's an opportunity for the manager to mix it up. I thought we looked better when Lacazette come on. Someone who could get hold of the ball.
He held the ball up well, yeah. Well, I see someone very special in the green room right now. So I'm going to go ahead and bring them in. Let's see. They can bring that picture back. Let's try it, shall we, Kev? Here we go.
Yeah.
Mr. Bob Wilson, Arsenal legend and 1971 double winner. Are you there?
I am here. Apologies for laughing. As a goalkeeper, you should never be late for the ball. And here I am, very late for the ball. Huge apologies, Sophie. We just had a little bit of a problem with the computer.
Oh, and no worries.
Well, you can tell I'm getting an old man these days. I'm not able to keep up with all this technology.
There he is.
Hi, Bob.
Welcome.
Kevin. It's great to see Kevin, by the way, Sophie. That guy had the biggest smile. This is Megs, who's talking to you at last.
Thank you so much. Hi, Megs. Thanks so much for your help today. You guys
I just have to try and get onto Google Chrome instead of Safari, so we got it now.
I love it. Thank you so much for your help.
Good to
Wonderful.
see you.
Pleasure. Good to see you. Have a good one.
Andrew, thank you.
Thanks, Megs. Thanks so much.
Done, yeah.
Well, here he is, Super Kev, Mr. Sir Bob Wilson to us Arsenal fans.
Listen, one thing I will say, Bob, to you is every time I ever met you, even from a youngster right through to the first team, I was always excited in your company because you were always such a legend for the likes of myself and my age group. And then when I got into the first team, I don't know if you remember this, Bob, but me and Ian Wright always used to look over to you. You were trading Dave Seaman and Alan Miller at the time. And we always looked over envious. And I don't know how right he worked it out, but we got taken out of training sometimes to come and train with you and the goalkeepers. Could you remember that, Bob?
I do remember, and it's actually for me it's great that Righty still says that when he did the normal training, like you were doing the normal training, that he used to come over and the idea being that get inside the heads of a goalkeeper.
Yes.
Because, I mean, you guys out on the field have all the thoughts and things that you have to think about. But the goalkeeper, I mean, you are such a fool to be a goalkeeper in the first place. I might say that. I mean, you're there to be shot at. And you're always going to get blamed and you're always going to have to live with making a mistake or two. But I thought it was amazing, when anybody said, can we come over and join in with either the goalie, David Seaman, Lukey, Big Pat Jennings, whoever it might be at the time, Alan Miller. And by the way, Kevin, the saddest thing for me this year so far, apart from losing one of my own family, is to know that we don't have Alan Miller with us anymore. And I went up to the funeral and Alan Smith was quite amazing. I must tell you that, because he, like you, he's one of those guys who always had a smile on his face. Whatever was going on, had a smile on his face. Just as I think of you, I must say, I can never remember Kevin Campbell, Sophie, without a smile on his face.
His energy, he's an inspiration, Bob, just like you. I mean, he inspires us all every day on this show, and I love that you just said that, because he really does.
Bob. He's the teacher. Bob, you're the teacher. Honestly, you are the teacher. I saw you work with John Lukic, and you work wonders with John Lukic. And then Dave Seaman came, and I saw you work with Dave Seaman. And even, obviously, we just used to call Dave Seaman goalie at the time. But the work you put into those goalkeepers, you made them all better because of who you were. You made us better as strikers. That's one thing I could hold my hands up and say, your energy, your personality is infectious. And I've never had the opportunity to thank you for it, Bob. But I'm thanking you here first time on the Highbury squad, because you made me a better player and a better striker. Definitely.
Well, I mean, that I would never ever have believed that any of you outfield guys would have come up and appreciated so much what I was really trying to do, because there were no goalkeeping coaches when I came up with the idea of goalkeeping coaches. I mean, Kevin, you mentioned me as a teacher. You know, my dad wouldn't let me be a footballer initially. Yeah. Oh, son, by the way, this is a Scottish accent. Oh, son. You know, football isn't a proper job. I'm not allowing you to sign for Manchester United, because I was on United's books for 2 years at the time of the Munich air crash. Nobby Stiles and I were the 2 schoolboy internationals that they actually signed at that time, but he wouldn't let me sign professional. And so I did actually become a school teacher, physical education history, went to Loughborough University, which is just one of the greatest universities in the UK. And it just seemed so natural for me once I was getting towards the end of my football career, and I had lots of injuries, possibly because of the way I played, a little bit suicidal. But it was suddenly saying, why are there no goalkeeping coaches? And so it was, you know, for 28 years, it wasn't just Arsenal, but it was mainly Arsenal. On a daily basis, it became Arsenal. And it was very much an honorary position. There was no payment. I didn't get any payment. My job was on the telly by that time. And it was an extraordinary thing for me then. Only when Arsene Wenger came did he realize that, you know, I don't understand, you don't get any pay, Bob. And I said, well, there are no goalkeeping coaches, Arsene, and I'm trying to bring them into the game.
Create it, yeah.
That's incredible. You know, Bob, I want to circle back just a little bit, because you are and have been quite a trailblazer, not only in your career, but also post-career as well. And you talk about maybe, you know, being the first coach, goalkeeping coach. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you were the first real player to go onto TV and have a marquee show, Grandstand Football Focus. I mean, growing up, Saturdays just weren't the same if you weren't watching Mr. Bob Wilson on Grandstand. And if I correct me if I'm wrong, but did you have a little bit of a thespian in you? I think you've played a role in Henry VIII as well. I mean, are there no end to your talents? And then with all of the wonderful work you're doing with the Willow Foundation, of course, and we'll get to that. But have you felt that in your career, or have you just approached it? I want to be a footballer. I want to be a goalkeeper. How did it all start for you?
You saw at the beginning of here, I think everybody else will have seen that my wife Megs was here. Now, we were boyfriend and girlfriend when I was 12 and she was 11. And Megs wanted to be an actress. And I mean, her greatest performance was at the same age of Joan of Arc, when she played Joan of Arc at that particular age on stage. Wow. And it was incredible. But then, you know, along came marriage and her career went there. The thespian bit for me came with school plays. My biggest part was definitely playing Harry Hotspur in King Henry IV Part 1. A most dramatic end, by the way. If anybody knows that story at the end, the baddie that is, I mean, fancy having a name Hotspur for a start.
Yeah, exactly. Get rid of that.
When you're an Arsenal man, how can you do that? But anyway, the final line of Harry Hotspur, as he lies dying on the field of battle, and he's suddenly about to go, talk about dramatic, the final words, and I think I'm right here in saying, and so die, Harry, and food for, and then I dramatically went, worms was the final word. So this was actually one or two people in the audience, I heard them say, oh, he's died. So I was 18 at the time. I was 18. Wow. So the thespian bit came from there. As for Grandstand and everything, I am really proud. I mean, there are some iconic, obviously, presenters. David Coleman was the man who believed in me initially. And then I think of the iconic presenters that I worked alongside, Frank Boff, who was incredibly helpful to me. Obviously, then beyond that, Des Lynam, Steve Ryder. But I am really proud of one thing, that it wasn't just football focused, that they thought I was ultimately good enough to present grandstand, main grandstand, Sunday grandstand. And then ITV came along after 20 years of my being at the Beeb. They came along and I was in the chair for 8 years, as it were, at ITV. So for me, I look back on that and think, well, at least, you know, I just broke the mold a little bit. There's a huge difference, as Kevin knows, between being a presenter. Sophie, you know this. Kevin, you know this now. You've got people in your ear saying, you know, Bob, we're, you know, 15 seconds when it was ITV, it was difficult. 15 seconds to ads and you're having to just stop the people you're talking to. So I'm immensely proud that I think I was the first footballer to be a main presenter in that respect. The saddest one of that and the most awful of days was to be in the chair as the grandstand presenter on the day of the Hillsborough disaster.
Wow.
Wow. Bob, I remember, like all of us that day, where we were watching, and I can't even begin to imagine how difficult it is to separate, obviously, your emotion, not only having played the beautiful game, but then also to do your job as a broadcaster and understand that when a tragedy like that is unfolding on screen and you do have like this spontaneity now going in terms of, you know, what you're supposed to deliver from your perspective, as well as trying to keep it, manage the news and the process. I can't even begin to imagine. Has that stuck with you still to this day, Bob?
Oh, yes. I mean, it's just, I mean, when we finished, we all went to have a drink afterwards and we cried. I mean, all the ladies connected with grandstand were crying. And just to say to you, we knew early on that there had been something far worse than we were able to report. Initially, it was a fact about the Liverpool fans and the Forest fans being still in that ground. So we were not allowed to say anything other than there has been an issue and a problem. Des Lynam was actually at Hillsborough, so they'd go to Des. At that time, we weren't able to say anything about deaths. For me, sitting on the floor of grandstand talking, I was hearing in my ear from the producer who was sitting up there at Hillsborough that there's another body outside the scanner. There's another body outside the scanner. And we were not allowed. I mean, Downing Street were into it. It was just such a mega thing. And but unbelievably, around about 10 minutes from the end of the program, see, their problem was they thought there would be, because of the deaths and everything, there might be, I think, an issue between the two sets of fans. So we were not allowed at that time to sort of make it public that people were dying. And only towards the end of that program was I asked to sort of get something in my mind to tell the watching audience that if you're concerned about your loved ones, particularly obviously with the Liverpool fans, this is the number you need to get in touch with. And I was, you know, the producer, not the main guy on the sports department, who was in my ear and said, Bob, can you find the words to do that? And I think I found them. I said, if you're concerned, I think it went along the lines of, if any of you out there are concerned about the loved ones, this is the number you need to get in touch on. When we went off air, I think I was reporting that around about 8 people only had lost their lives. We all went to have a drink and talk about the program after it. As we were drinking and talking, on the screen, it came up that 26 people had lost their lives. And ultimately that became 96. And in fact, in the last month or two, you'll know it became 97. Yeah. And somebody who died, and they said as a result of Hillsborough. So, I mean, it was incredibly testing. I can still remember how on earth are we going to really break this news through, because the only other major part of that program day was the World Snooker Championships, which ironically was also in Sheffield, at the Crucible Theatre in Sheffield. So, yeah, it was a testing time and an upsetting time. And I have to admit to being floods of tears when I got home.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And isn't it, football is such a glorious game, Kev, and also a sad one. And Bob has seen the beauty of both sides as a broadcaster and as a footballer. And I would like to start here because this team, this iconic team, kind of the nucleus Super Kev of the new culture, the new DNA of the Arsenal Football Club. And just something that we still revere to this day, and the kickstart to something very, very special at our club.
Do you know what, Sophie? I want to go a game before that. Because
I know
Bob,
which one.
do you remember Paul Dempsey? Paul Dempsey, I was working with Paul Dempsey on Saturday, and I told him that you were coming, and he said, please say this to Bob. Arsenal versus Stoke in the first semi-final, it finished the draw. He said, but how did Bob get through that game and keep Arsenal in it? He said, please ask Bob that question, because him and Peter Storey, I think it was, were immense. Everyone else was so poor. Could you remember that game, Bob?
Do you know, Kevin, I have an incredible, as my memory fades on many things, it never seems to fade about incidents and events, particularly to do obviously with my playing career. And it was an extraordinary day. We started off so badly. It was a bad back pass led to them going ahead. We were 2-0 down. We could have been 3-0 down when I know I made an absolutely crucial save, because within 4 or 5 minutes of it, we got back into it. The penalty, by the way, the penalty was extraordinary. I think the photograph that you're looking up there is, yeah, you can see all the arms going up from our guys saying, hey, ref, penalty. And in fact, Banksy, the great Gordon, who I got to know really well, will still tell you that it wasn't handball, and I think most of the Stoke boys would say so too. But the penalty kick that Peter Storey took was one of the worst penalties you'll ever see. and Banksy, of all people, the great Banksy. I mean, you mentioned David Seaman, who is one of the greatest England goalkeepers ever. Banksy will remain that, of course, because he was in goal when they won the World Cup. Yeah. But Banksy suddenly put all his body balance onto the right foot. And I'm sure Snouty, we called him Snouty, by the way, folks, Peter Storey.
Snouty.
I mean, there was always, around all at that time, there was Norman Hunter, there was Nobby Stiles, there was Peter Storey. You always had one of those guys in it. But I think he almost kicked it. And it only went to 1.5 yards at the most beyond Banksy's left foot as he took all his weight onto one side. It was, and anyway, we were there. And the thing I really remember after that, at the end of the game, I treasure a photograph of Banksy and myself shaking hands with each other. And you'd have thought that we have played 90 minutes on the field, not standing in your goal. Because a lot of people said, about fitness and everything, but the emotional drainage of goalkeeping, always. And there's a photograph of Banksy and myself on that semi-final, and we both look to be way beyond our years and fatigued. And I often, when we got into the bath afterwards, in those days, we all got in a big bath together and with the players. And I said, look, and they were going, we're knackered. I'm saying, I'm knackered. What? You stood in your goal for 90 minutes. Why are you knackered? And it was the emotion. Are they going to shoot? Are they going to do this? And I treasure that photograph just to show the stress that goalkeepers take. I'm actually in the process just today of starting Peter Schmeichel's book, and I've got through 3 chapters, and it's going to be a great read. And it just sort of replicates everything that I can tell you about how goalkeeping was for me. But at the bottom line of it was I loved it. I loved trying to have my moment of glory. And that's a very young Bob Wilson.
That's a very young Bob Wilson. And, I've got that picture here, but for some reason I can't upload it. And to be honest with you, the way you're describing it is perfect, Bob, because you look like 2 warriors who have just fought a war. And you could see the exhaustion and the physicality that you've gone through. And before we kind of hop onto, because everyone, as you can imagine, is desperate to know what you think about Aaron Ramsdale, and we'll get to that eventually. Calm down, everyone in chat. I promise. But Kev, we have to just talk about this team a little bit more.
Oh, definitely.
And what you guys achieved, Bob. What was the vibe in the team that season? And by the way, the fact that you lads played without gloves and the ball was like a brick back in the day.
Yeah.
what was the vibe that season? Was there an end goal? The manager was kind of a fearless manager. Tell us a little bit about him and how things started that season before you reached the pinnacle.
Yeah, Sophie, I'm hoping there's a similarity between what is happening at Arsenal right now to what was happening when I arrived as the amateur school teacher in 1963. I mean, can you imagine an amateur school teacher playing 10 games in the Arsenal first team, which I did in my first season, and then went into the wilderness. And then it was wilderness. But then suddenly around about 68, 69, it was, we League Cup, 2 League Cup defeats, one of which for us, the ones I played in against Swindon Town, was absolutely for the club disastrous. The headlines, I still have the headlines, the shame of North London. I mean, it was just incredible. I remember Desmond Hackett, the writer, absolutely slaughtering every one of us who represented Arsenal Football Club. And there were changes made. You mentioned Bertie Mee, the manager. Don Howe was an incredible, well, probably one of the best coaches I have ever seen in my life, and a great footballer as well. And he was the one who sort of, they made a couple of changes, and then suddenly, and you'll see this replicated almost like a mirror image now with the Smith Rowe, Bukayo Saka's, Nketiah, these guys, these young guys who are there, who they've got to treasure at this moment in time. We had suddenly Pat Rice, 20 years of age or 21 years of age, right back. Sammy Nelson, who didn't play in the double year, but was absolutely crucial to us. Charlie George, a kid that I used to go and teach in the afternoons, because I still taught part-time in the afternoons. I mean, everybody else at the school called me sir, and Charlie said, "What's your Bob? You okay, Bob?" And I mean, he was a rascal and always will be a rascal. But what I'm trying to get to is that suddenly there was this sort of emerging. We're getting close. 2 League Cup finals we've lost. And then the season that really put us there was 1970, when we won the first European trophy that Arsenal had ever won in their 31 trophies that they have now won, third behind Manchester United and Liverpool, or Liverpool and Man United, whichever way you go. And that Intercities Fairs Cup, the win against Anderlecht, to come from 3-1 down to win the following game 3-0, that changed everything. And that made us, at the beginning of that 70-71 season, sit down and say, look, I think we're capable of taking the big one. For me, the most difficult trophy you can ever win is certainly not the Champions League. It depends on your groups and who you're drawn with and everything. You have a limited amount of games. But in that, they play 38 games now. We played 42 games way back. And it was 42 games. And to finish top of what was the First Division Premier League, excuse me, that is, I think, the ultimate. I would say that was the ultimate.
I'm to hear you say that, an absolute legend, because Kevin and I agree too. Like, the Champions League is very sexy. It's fantastic to be part of it. The fiscal impact that it has on your club is absolutely amazing. This is one of the reasons why I like Pep so much, because every season he says the league is it. Winning the league is everything. It's been 17 years since we've won it, Bob, and I love, like, Kevin's behind the team and the young players, of course, and hearing both of you talk about it from a player perspective. As a fan, sometimes we just can't see the things that you see and that you read and that you kind of have on the inside. And maybe your Arsenal team was a little bit more prepared to bring in the youth at the time. But I want to build on what you just said, because when you look at Saka and Emile Smith Rowe and what we're trying to do, you guys still had some experience around you as well. Does it concern you when it comes to the more senior players at the club in terms of what you're seeing and the capabilities they have and what they bring to the table to help support the youth coming through, or the new players that we've bought?
Yeah, concern, Sophie, from the point of view that I need to see leaders. I see one very clear outfield leader who should, I think, become the captain of the club in the next season or two. And his name is Kieran Tierney. I think I think he has leadership qualities. You have to have that leadership. We had Frank McClintock at the time, one of the most extraordinary guys I've ever met, and even now the competitive element. And just going back to that game at Anderlecht, we're 3-0 down with 5 minutes to go, and suddenly we grab a goal. Ray Kennedy scores, and we're 3-1, and we go in. And the worst person affected when we went in the dressing room was the skipper, Frank, and he was effing and blinding. He comes out of the Gorbals in Glasgow, and a hard guy, and he was shouting and screaming and almost in tears. And then, unbelievably, we all shower. And he comes out and he suddenly realizes we only have to win 2-0 because we will then win it on the away goal. And he came out still effing and blinding, I might say, but saying next week we'll do this and next. And he's shouting and doing what I'm doing now. And we're all sort of, oh, hang on, what's going on here? And he just carried that over right throughout the 7 or 8 days, 9 days or so before we played the return. And it was just a no contest. It was just the most extraordinary night, I think, probably in the history of Highbury. A lot of fans of that era said to suddenly win that trophy and a first European trophy. And that was the thing, the springboard for what happened the following years. 50 years ago, Sophie. It's 50. I mean, where's
the years gone?
Yeah, do you look at these pictures and think, I mean, I think we all do. It's there's so many landmarks, so many anniversaries, and you wonder, like, wow, 50 years. We had Jill Armstrong on the show as well a few months ago, and we've had lots of players that have come through the show. And when you look back at whether it's 89, 71, the Invincibles, time goes by so quickly. And as an Arsenal fan, 17 years is a long time, Kev, to not win the league, let alone be competitive in the league.
Sophie, do you know what? This is one thing I will say. When the good times come, I mean, when you put up that picture with Bob with the trophies, I feel so proud, honestly. Mm-hmm. And because I know, not only do I know Bob, not only were some of that team connected with Arsenal and me that I had the privilege of meeting, but they really were the standard bearers for the likes of myself. I was a baby when Bob and the guys won that trophy, those trophies. But 17 years feels like a long time. But when you get success, because it is cycles, when you get success, you've got to milk it and make sure you really enjoy it, because it doesn't come around all the time. We have had some fantastic moments and eras at Arsenal. So when they come around, fans, I tell you, make the most.
I think we should add, Sophie, for those who forget, that it's coming there from a guy who actually won the Cup Winners' Cup. Am I right? Cup Winners' Cup. Cup Winners' Cup. The league title. Kevin Campbell was there on the league title. The FA Cup. Were you involved in the League Cup as well, Kevin? Yep. And it's there was a spell there that. I know that guy there, who I'm looking at, who I know so well, loves Arsenal Football Club as much as I do. I mean, I am in what is my office, Megs and my office for our charity, but within it, you can probably see over the back there pictures of me jumping for a ball, and I'm surrounded by football books here, and particularly goalkeeping books. And to my right, I actually have the Cup Winners' Medal and the League Winners' Medal. And because you mentioned this,
here we go.
I'm just reaching. You said we never had gloves, Sophie. Here it is.
No, those are your marigolds. Those are your marigolds, Bob.
This is my 1971 glove with my finger through the top there.
Wow, that is incredible.
Wow.
I mean, it's that 71 is a vintage year, the year I was born, and so for me, a very, very special year. But most pictures I see of you, I do not see those gloves. I do not believe it, Mr. Wilson.
Well, what we did, I mean, there were no gloves as you know them now. I mean, they cost about £250 now, the gloves that they wear. You see the extension up the arm to strengthen their wrists and all that sort of thing. But it was really Banksy after the 1970, I think it was World Cup, when he came back with the first gloves that had any rubber down the front of the fingers and everything. But what we did in our era, and what goalkeepers did in that era on a what would be a dry pitch, difficult when it became a wet pitch, but on a dry pitch, you would have chewing gum in your mouth, and it's not very nice. But before the game, you'd have a real good poo, 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 and you'd start rubbing this chewing gum together, which made them tacky. You'd add a tiny little bit of dirt off the pitch, and you'd make them tacky. And then you would psychologically, you'd think, I've got hands
grip.
Exactly that. And then finally, you know, we got these light gardening gloves. These bore the name of and Peter Bonetti, and they cost 5 shillings and 6pence.
Wow.
That's how much they cost. And nowadays the gloves the guys wear are about £250-300, depending on whose gloves you wear. So the huge changes, obviously, from those days.
Huge changes. Now, you've worked alongside and coached Mr. Seaman. You mentioned Lukic, and you know, Arsenal fans are now in love with this young fella. And we're jumping around a bit here, you guys, because there's so much to talk about. But once we touch on one subject, we'll follow so much. I can't even right now. Mr. Ramsdale, what are your thoughts on this young fella so far, Bob?
Well, I'm absolutely, at this moment, I'm absolutely fascinated. But I've got such admiration. Let me first of all say that I live in Christchurch in Dorset now, by the water's edge.
Lovely.
And Christchurch is very close to Bournemouth. So 2 seasons ago, Aaron Ramsdale was the player of the year for Bournemouth. So I saw him obviously quite a lot, but they got relegated. He goes to Sheffield United and he's player of the season, but they got relegated. Now, please don't say that things go in threes, because he's now... Well, there is a saying that things go in threes, you know that. But listen, let me be serious.
I mean, should I give him a card, Super Kev? Do I give the legend that is Bob Wilson? I'll give him a warning. I'll give him a warning. Okay, it's back in the...
Listen, I'm just... let me just say that what I've seen of him, the biggest impression he's made for me so far on the pitch was the game at Burnley. There were 6 or 7 crosses. Okay, there were shots on goal and he dealt with them. And he, you know, the other guy who's been there for a couple of seasons, Bern Leno, is a terrific shot stopper. My problem with Bern was his ability to help the defense, deciding, shall I come, shall I not come, shall I catch, shall I not catch? There is no doubt in this lad's mind. In the Burnley game, I think it was 8 crosses in the game, and he caught every single cross. It was incredible. I also like the fact that he's pretty vocal with the lads around him. If they make a mistake, you'll see him, and he's doing it in a constructive way, not a destructive way. Now, against that, again with Bernd, who I think is a really great shot stopper again. If I go back to the first game of the season, okay, they would probably still have won 1-0. It was the first game in the Premier League and everything. But on the second goal, it was the biggest, worst, one of the worst sort of refereeing decisions you could ever get. He got his arm pinned in by a guy from the throw-in, great big long throw-in, tactic that Brentford used. They got some giants in there. He pinned Bernd Leno's arm in. They never looked at it on VAR. They never did anything like that. But it was Bernd Leno's reaction to it. David Seaman and I were on the phone within half an hour saying, what would you have done? So I know that David Seaman would have put the guy on the floor. You know, he's 6'4" and he would have done that. And there was no objection. Well, he held his arms out. Bernd Leno went, ref. You can't do that. You've got to make it clear that there is something that they've got to look at. Otherwise, so I that would be my concern. So I like the fact that he is demonstrative in in probably at this moment, he might control it a bit, because I thought on Saturday I think it was Saturday, he was slightly over the top, with demonstrating with some of the guys, and especially with some of the new guys who are coming in there. So you've got to do that in a way where the guys in front of you know it's constructive. So I am in huge admiration of the way he's come into this side and let in just one goal so far in the games he's played, and played a huge part in the Tottenham game when they got a goal. He then made an absolutely crucial save where he got a little touch onto the crossbar. Yeah. If they'd gone to 3-2, and Kevin knows this,
then the wobble.
You know it from both sides. Kevin knows it from playing in a side where you're 3-0 up and it goes to 3-3. I mean, I think it was it last year we were 3-0 down against West Ham and came to 3-3 or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was just such a crucial touch. And I am at this moment in time, I'm sort of in awe of Aaron Ramsdale, that he has had that capacity to be at Bournemouth and to be relegated. Player of the season, fine. Sheffield United, player of the season, but relegated again. And here he is. I think it's such a bold, and also the selection within the England squad, which again has been an amazing boost to him as well.
Bob, can I just touch on quickly, as you mentioned that, the mental strength of Ramsdale, because a lot of people were using the relegations as a stick to beat him with when he came to Arsenal. I've seen the way you've worked with goalkeepers at Arsenal on the mental side of things. How strong must he be mentally to suffer those tough relegations and then to come in at Arsenal? And he said Bernd Leno was a good keeper, but he also said, I want to be number one.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I'm not quite sure where he's got that strength from. I tried to put myself in the position of being ultimately what you would call a loser, going out of the best league in the world, as it were, and going and then doing it for 2 seasons, and to come to still have that belief and to know that he is performing in the way that he's performing to be player of the year in the 2 years that he was at those 2 clubs. But as you say, Kevin, the mental side of goalkeeping is really the crucial side. I mean, we all have a different way of doing it. I was incredibly nervous goalkeeper before the game. I'm giving you a comparison, and Kevin will know the other guy I'm going to talk about. If it was me, I'd leave home in the morning. Oh God, we're playing Man United. Oh God, that means Bestie. That means Bobby Charlton. That means, and I would be agitated in the dressing room. I'd start all my warm-ups. I'd hit the wall. I'd go into the bath area at Highbury where because we didn't go out on the pitch, you see, and warm up in those days. You only went out when you actually, the ball went for you to go out. And so I would be like that. And then I'd be in the tunnel thinking, why the hell have I ever chosen to do this job? This is crazy, And then we wouldn't see the other team. We went down separately. And then I would hit daylight. And it was like, it was honestly like a crazy, this is what you've chosen. Go out and show them what you can do. And I did know by then that I believed in myself. When you have to believe in yourself, however much anybody else can help you, you have to believe in yourself. Against my style of being in a goal, I could put alongside it 2 of the calmest, Kevin knows this word I'm going to say. If you have a presence about you, you are 75% of the way there, possibly. And I'm talking about 2 goalkeepers there who were very comparable in styles. Both played for Arsenal at one time or another. Big Pat Jennings, who is known as a Tottenham man, obviously, and is still involved with the club, are extraordinary presence about him, apart from the fact that he had giant hands that were way above anybody else's. But the only man that I've ever seen really come comparable to that has been David Seaman. And David Seaman's ability to have this incredible calmness. I'm reading Schmeichel's book, and I've already skipped to where he mentions Seaman, and he actually says, I love this man. he still thinks that the save that he made against Sheffield United in the semi-final is the greatest save he's ever seen.
Yeah.
He sort of clawed it out the back of the net, but it's his presence. And I'm still very much in touch. I've been his best man on more than one occasion, which we won't go into. But anyway, he won't mind my going into that. But anyway, that's another side. But extraordinary. If you have that capability, that presence, that calmness, that apparent, okay, guys, everything's falling around in front of you, I will bail you out. And those two guys, particularly for me, were, well, particularly in that field, definitely the top two.
Yeah. There's a lot of chat in the box, Kev, about Clements and Jennings and Seaman and, the goalkeeping debate.
Oh, and by the way, Bob, John Burridge says you were the bravest goalkeeper ever. He modelled some of his. Well, as you know, he's a little bit crazy.
He's crazy.
He used to watch you, Bob, dive at the feet of players fearlessly, and he said, "That's my guy." He says, "I've got to be like Bob." He said.
That is so great to hear. Can I just say two things there? I used to love the fact, talk about being an individual. I got to know that he used to, at home, have a football, and while he's watching the telly, throwing the ball against the wall and catching it, and being in bed and throwing the ball against the wall and catching it. I mean, okay, everybody knows that was that side of it. As far as I go, I always I had a hero. I mean, heroes can be good. You've got to be careful. My hero was Bert Troutman. It was that very famous cup final, the 56 cup final in Manchester City, and he had this ability. I didn't copy him. I was born with the ability, like him, to see somebody coming through, a forward like Kevin Campbell there, and you were waiting. You weren't, as they do now. They stand up, they try and save with their feet, which Big Pat really brought into the game, Pat Jennings. But it was an ability with him, and one that was God-given to me, absolutely God-given to me, was the ability to assess a fraction of miscontrol. And at the moment of miscontrol, to be close enough, instead of standing and blocking or whatever, going boom. And it was that element of surprise. Now, I don't know where it came from, but I watched Bert and I loved Bert. And I got to know him, and he was part of my This Is Your Life program, the last guest on it. And he broke his neck in the cause of goalkeeping, but he won his team that FA Cup in that particular time. And I was able to do it in my own way, very similar. If anybody asked me, where was your favourite game? Where was your favourite save? The favourite game was at Tottenham on a Monday night when we became champions. That was extraordinary. In 71 to go to, of all places, White Hart Lane. And
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, sorry, but anyway, and then obviously the point of view was it was quite a problem for me having Bert as a hero, because I was born in 1941. My eldest brother Jock was a Spitfire pilot, killed in February 42. I was the youngest of the six, and my second brother Billy was a rear gunner in a Lancaster and was killed before I was 2 years old. I have no recollection of these two brothers of mine, who to me will always be heroes, absolute heroes. And so for my dad, when I said, Dad, I want to go and watch this guy play, I want to try and go to see Bert Troutman, the fact that he was a German prisoner of war, and I just wish my dad had lived long enough to be able to meet him like I met Bert, that this was a guy who chose to stay in this country after the war. You could either be repatriated, as it were, go back to the country, back to Germany. And Bert chose to stay. And I mean, the story then of how he faced what he had to face and then become a hero and lifelong hero for any Manchester City fan now. There's a garden just at the new stadium, which I was privileged to be asked by his family to go up and help open, the Bert Troutman section of it. So I believe I had an extraordinary hero. It was difficult for my dad, and I can understand, because not only did he lose two sons, he also fought in the First World War in the Highland Light Infantry, because my mum and dad were both Scottish, and he was he had a little bit of an issue with that.
That is such an incredible story.
Wow.
Like, and I want to try and encapsulate this in to you both, because one of the things, my generation, I'm a Generation Xer, but there are a lot of listeners of our show, Bob, that were there and saw you win the 71 double. There are some that just were born when the Invincibles came to be. There are some that are 20 years old, 30, 40, so many demographics and generations from all around the world. And when you tell a story like that and you talk about these experiences, I think this is what we're not expecting our modern day footballers to go and fight in a war or play a game as well. But this is why your history, your stories from Kev's era to your era, so important to keep alive and keep telling these stories, because it's a totally different level of heroism and hero. And it's not because, Patrick Vieira isn't an Arsenal hero, or Dennis Bergkamp or Thierry Henry. They are, maybe just in a different way. And I wondered if you could help me encapsulate that a little bit from your end, and Kev will jump in too. And I think we expect a lot from our athletes today, because you guys have set such a high standard. As fans, do we expect too much? Or do you feel like it's fair to say when you wear the Arsenal shirt, you've got that crest? Kevin always says sometimes it's a weight for some. But we want this team to be great again. We want heroes again. This is why we love the club so much.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
Well, you're basically talking there, Sophie, about the history of Arsenal Football Club. I mean, there's always a joke about how they broke into the top level. They're the only one ever not to get relegated from the time they got promoted in 1919, I think it was. A bit dubious in the way. But then the way the club was built from there, through Herbert Chapman, through it just became more and more. There was a building. It was just like this building and building. And, people then started, it's actually Arsenal Football Club, but we call it the Arsenal. Mm-hmm. And the fans call it the Arsenal. And anything that I now have in my life, my 28-year career on television, I owe to Arsenal Football Club. Without Arsenal Football Club, there would be no Bob Wilson as the public now know Bob Wilson, retired old man, as it were, about to be 80 in 3 weeks' time.
Wow.
And I owe everything. I owe everything for the career that I had there. Injury really was the main thing, but I was already thinking, I was only 33 when I finished playing in goal, but I never wanted to play for anybody else. And I had a serious injury that was a little bit limiting, even though I thought I was still playing well and could play for another. Well, I did. I played in Denmark for a few odd games in Denmark when I was about 35 or 36. So, but it was the fact I did not want to play for any other club but Arsenal Football Club. They were the club that had made me, that and even now, every time I go into that stadium, every time I watch a game, when I look at the surroundings now, and obviously having been there when Arsene and the club made the decision to go from Highbury. Arsene Wenger never wanted to leave Highbury, by the way, folks. He never wanted to. But I was there because I was coaching then by this time, and I heard him say quite clearly, I really, the marble halls, there's nothing like this ground. It's Art Deco. This is the great Arsenal ground. But if we want to compete at the top level and continue to compete, we can't do it on 38,000 or 42,000 maximum. We have got to have a ground. And he was always thinking ahead in that way. And all credit to the board at Arsenal, who went along with these plans of Arsene and took it forward in that way. And because he knew that this other things were happening, it was beginning to happen. And all the other clubs came down to see the training ground once he had the new training ground. And once we had the new ground, people were coming to see it. Right, we're going to do this. We're going to follow the Arsenal way of doing it. And so for me, I mean, it is the pride in the club and everything they've tried to do. We will, of course, have ups and downs. When I first arrived there, Sophie, there were a lot of downs, believe you me. I arrived as a school teacher, and had to teach for the 1 year between 1963 and 64 season. Then I signed pro, and we, nothing was won. And then I went into the wilderness, and okay, I'd played a few games in the first team as the amateur school teacher, and then suddenly things were beginning to stir. A little bit like I hope they're beginning to stir at this moment in time. But it was the Arsenal, and we will be back there.
And it's so comforting when you say it out loud. When Kev says it out loud, I believe it, and I want to believe it. And I know this might be a tricky question for you to answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Arsene changed not only Arsenal Football Club, he changed the Arsenal in so many ways. He changed English football in so many ways. And Sir Alex Ferguson says it, everyone says it. Do you feel like, unlike Sir Alex, it felt like he was moving with the times of the modern game? Do you think that Arsene, maybe because he was such a pioneer, such a trailblazer, do you think that he didn't move with the game, and in the end, did he stay a little bit longer than maybe even you as a fan would have wanted versus someone who worked alongside him and collaborated and saw him day in, day out? Bob, what's your thoughts on that? Because a lot of people say, not that he's ruined his legacy, but maybe we'd be 5 years ahead had he walked out after that second FA Cup, perhaps.
I don't believe the last part of what you just said there. I don't think we'd have been, the 5 years ahead, as it were, at all. I think you can say at the end, within Arsene, and one of the things that made him great was a stubborn streak within him. There was a stubborn part within him. And yes, it was at 21 years of which, we were in Champions League football and European football for all that time. So I can understand. I don't understand how anybody could have derogatory things to say about him like some of the fans did. I can't believe that, because he, as you say, not just changed Arsenal Football Club and gave them a history now and things. The Invincibles. I mean, how do you do that? How do you go 38 games and not lose a game? I just think it's extraordinary. And maybe you could, I wouldn't disagree with saying, Arsene, 21 years is extraordinary. Nobody really has done that in the same way that you have, and achieved everything that you have in changing the club, coming into a club. And he never wanted to leave Highbury. I promise you, we've had discussions about it. He is, without question, Sophie, one of the three most interesting guys I have ever met in my life, and I've had the great privilege of meeting so many.
Who are the other two? Curiously, who are the other two?
I'll give you Bert. Bert, I've already mentioned to you. I always say the three. Let's stick with those two.
Don't leave anyone out, Bob.
Well, yeah. I was thinking for a moment, I should say that Kevin Campbell was the
Campbell.
No, Bob, listen, like I've said, always being in your presence at the training ground, and this is what a lot of people won't see, Bob. When we're at the training ground and we're training, you were a different person. You're always so professional. You were always so encouraging to the goalkeepers. And I think that's why Righty and I, whenever we looked over, we were a bit envious, if I'm honest with you, because the goalkeepers, although they were working really hard, they looked like they were having fun. So we wanted to come and join in to have that fun. So as I said, Righty said, we're going with Bob today. And I said, no way. And then when you called us over, Bob, we were in our element. I was so happy to have joined you and the goalkeepers with Righty. And like I said, you made me a better player. I always appreciated Arsenal because I've been an Arsenal fan all my life. But having another one of the 1970-71 double winners, because it was obviously George Graham was there, you had Geordie Armstrong, you had Pat Rice who was there, and then you were there. I mean, what more could a young player ask for?
Yeah,
I couldn't ask for any more, because that mentality, you guys all had it.
They look mischievous, though, Bob. Look at them. I mean, come on. I'm sure there's an anecdote.
I mean, where's that hair gone?
I've got it. I've got it in the cupboard. I've got it in the cupboard. I've dyed it black. It's all right, Bob.
Yeah. I mean, for me, that's one of the great honors that I feel that I have when Righty and Kevin talk about doing their training and having our goalkeeping sessions having an effect on them. But the reverse of that is the fact that they were prepared to come over and say, look, we think we know about the goal is always going to be the same. It's 8 yards by 8 feet. It's 192 square feet. It's an effing great chasm. And we know about doing certain things, but we don't know it from the goalkeeper's point of view. We don't know where he is vulnerable. About how much if he leaves his near post, I'm talking about a near post in the 71 final now, if he leaves his post slightly unguarded by a half a centimetre or whatever, because I go to my grave having to live with a Highway goal in the cup final. Fortunately, we came back. But for those guys to come and to get into the mentality of the goalkeepers and to understand what our problems really were, that would give such an edge, an incredible edge.
Bob, we'll get you out on these last three here. Thank you so much for your time. Everyone in chat is going crazy and loving it. Kev, they're already asking us. They're such greedy little buggers, Bob. They're like, can Bob please come back? And I'm sure you will come back at some point. But really, oh man, I would love that framed on my wall. That's for sure. So let's talk a little bit about Arteta, because everyone wants to hear what you think of Mikel. What are your thoughts on Mikel Arteta and his tenure so far as the Arsenal manager?
Well, first of all, as a person, I like him immensely. I like the way he speaks, and I like the way he tries to not hide when things go wrong, that he will come out and face the music, as it were. I see him and remember him as a captain at Arsenal. I know how he loves the club. I also, third thing we're mentioning here is an apprenticeship at Manchester City under the manager that they have is just worth so much. And I still have this real belief. I think the game against Tottenham, I was a guest in what they call the Diamond Club, and the team sheet came up because they have a 27-man squad now. We had 17-man squads in our days, but I've had a look at the picture that was in the program in the Tottenham game. I have it in front of me actually here, and it's a 27-man squad, and I think that sometimes that is a hindrance because you've got so many talented players, and are you going to keep them happy? Are the agents going to be on to you? Whatever. The team sheet came out, and I was with these friends and with Megs, and I said, I think that's the best side currently. I think that's the side. And of course, the display in the first half was sensational, absolutely sensational. And I think it's one of the problems of the modern game is that you have 25, 26-man squads. And how do you keep them all happy? Because you're going to have them knocking on the door. I mean, I would be when we had 17-man squads. If I didn't play every single game in the season, I mean, Jeff Barnett was number 2 to me, and I don't know how he managed to cope with never playing a game. But it was 17 men. It was a much tighter bond. So there are always going to be little factions, I think, little sections who are going to say. So I think that's a little bit of an issue for Arteta that probably all managers in the modern game, particularly at a club like Arsenal, at Liverpool, at Manchester City, at Manchester United, at Chelsea, you're going to have to face that issue. I still have real hope that his tenure at Arsenal is going to continue, and that what we keep seeing glimpses of is just there now, and we want to see it go there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Really, and Kevin will know what I mean by that. It's suddenly the penny drops, if I can put it that way. There are no pennies nowadays left in the world, but the penny drops, and you suddenly think, "Wow, I believe in him so much. I believe in these teammates of mine." Because you can't do it by yourself. At any one team, there are only 11 of you on the field, and you have a specific job to do. Kevin's job was to score goals. He came up in that season where he was it 13 goals, Kevin, in a short time,
Yeah.
and everybody and once you can prove that aspect of your game, that you have such a part to play in going forward to winning things, which are getting more and more difficult, even though there are more trophies to win nowadays. And it's just knowing that you believe so much, not just in yourself, because you'll never make it if you don't believe in yourself, but in believing in those guys around you. I still look at every one of those guys in the squad, the 16 guys with me. I look at them, I will love them forever. And I can never, ever speak too highly of individuals within that squad of ours. I mean, there they are. We'd all gone past it a bit there because it was a reunion. But I mean, I look at Frank McClintock there. I look at George Graham, who I still see. There are some who are not with us anymore. John Roberts, third from on the back row, just to my right, no longer with us. Geordie Armstrong is no longer with us. Ray Kennedy has a major medical problem. It's just and there we are. And we would always, I think the extraordinary thing is, if ever you get a message from any of them saying, can you do this? I mean, nowadays doing what we're doing tonight, and I've been doing this a lot in this 50th year since we won the league, going to Pat Rice, enormous, going to George Graham, guys, can you come in? We're going to do a podcast. We're going to do this. We're going to do a Zoom meeting or whatever. Of course I'll do it. Of course I'll do it. We know what we're going to talk about. We're all going to talk about the same thing. Yeah. We're all going to agree that Charlie was a cheeky monkey and and had a moment of genius. He was born with genius, Charlie, and the goal that actually won us the double will be remembered very much like the Leicester City goal in the cup final that we had last year. But Charlie, and then I mean, to do what he did, I mean, the only guy who did not go and help pick him up. You can see his legs in the far corner of that was me, because I'm aware that we're running out of time. And we've gone from my mistake 1-0 down to 2-1 up with this extraordinary goal. I actually at that time was turning to Barry Davies, who I knew from the BBC, one of the commentators, and saying, how long to go? And he was going, I think he was going 8 minutes, something like that. And then, yeah, it was just to see out that. It was just extraordinary times, and just once you become a band of brothers, Sophie, it's very hard. Kevin knows exactly where I'm coming from because he's experienced what happens on the field, but what happens in the dressing room, what happens in the training ground, what happens when you actually meet each other outside, and you become this band of brothers. And you have to have that. If you don't have that friendship and that belief in each other, you ain't going to win anything.
Well, and hopefully that's what the new Arsenal are rebuilding, our DNA, our culture, that belief, that magic, new players who are proud to wear the badge, who are proud to represent the club, who are, stoked just to have the opportunity to play for the Arsenal. And Bob, we can't let you leave. We have to get you out on this. You've had an incredible legacy, an incredible life in football. But what you've been doing outside of the game, I think you could argue, has become your ultimate life legacy. Some of our younger fans may not know about the Willow Foundation, but it started from a life-changing experience for you. How's it going with the Willow Foundation? And are you more proud of this than you ever were of winning the 71 double? I mean, it's just a legacy that will live on forever.
Yeah, that's an impossible to split them, Sophie, except what Willow has achieved. We're 22 years old now. We've come through this pandemic. We've lost a certain number of staff. We were up to 40 staff and lost 12 or 13 staff. And we're now 10 days ago or so ago, we had our first fundraising major event again, our golf day, in which the guys from not just George Graham and the guys, the Arsenal guys, but Ozzy Ardiles was there, and we had all this support from the footballing guys, and we raised an extraordinary £50,000. And that's after we've not been able to fundraise properly now for obviously throughout the pandemic. And we were seriously worried. Having said that, we knew that we had achieved this extraordinary thing of going from 17 special days in year one, the year after Anna died, when Megs and I set up Willow. Anna died on December 1, 98, 6 days before her 32nd birthday. And we set it up on August the 25th with a golf day. And our restart just 10 days or so ago, suddenly they were all there, all our main supporters. It was just extraordinary to watch and to see. And Willow has now restarted its special days. Even during lockdown, we were doing what we call positivity packs. So there were 2 companies backing us. And if it was a lady, they were getting feminine stuff. But within it, if they had children, they had kids stuff. And if it was a guy, it was gentlemanly stuff. But again, if they had kids, there were always kids packages. And that went down so well. We were still trying to do our bit. And we're just around about 18,000 special days now. We had some people running in the marathon yesterday who we were following all the way around. And it has been extraordinary. It's obviously created or built out of the greatest sadness you can ever have in your life. You can imagine that for Megs and myself. But Anna was an extraordinary girl, and I will always hear her saying, "Mum and Dad, don't let this thing destroy you. Use what you've learned." And Meg's first reaction to those words were, when we were in the car, what the hell have we learned? We've learned that for 5 years she's had 18 life-saving operations. She's fighting on. What have we learned? And what we had learned was that Anna's incredible ability to have in her diary, when she was in one of the good phases, to have the next Take That concert, to have I remember the last concert she ever went to, which was a Streisand concert, to have the next Arsenal Cup final, and she would have something in her diary. And if Anna had something into her diary, even when she was on a really low plateau or come through another op, a few days before, you would see a change in her. You'd see suddenly a brightness. And then she would have what we would call her special day, whatever it might be that she wanted to go to, whatever concert, even retail shopping with her mum or something would give her this boost. And for 6-8 days after, when she'd had one of her special days, as we called it, she had this adrenaline rush, and then she would be back to fighting her fight. And it is based so simply upon that. And it's all about quality of life, quality of time, at a time when you are seriously being challenged. And the age group we're very proud of. We are the only UK charity that dedicates what we do, special days for seriously ill young adults, all life-saving, all life-threatening illnesses, but specifically the age group 16 to 40. If you're not going to enjoy yourself between 16 and 14, you are never going to enjoy yourself.
Incredible work, Kevin.
Inspirational.
And beyond inspirational. And we will share that link for the Willow Foundation will be within the description of this channel. I believe it's willowfoundation.org. And Bob, personally as a woman, I have to say your wife is an absolute hero as well. And you look for strong role models and women. And the fact that you guys have a love story that spans from when you were kids. And they do say behind every great man is, a greater woman. And I just wanted to give a shout out to Megs for all the work that she does behind the scenes and everything that she's done for the Willow Foundation as well in the Arsenal community. You two truly are an incredible couple, but epic human beings. And I just wanted to say and thank Megs as well for all that she's done, because there are a lot of us young women that looked up to her when we were growing up as well through your story.
Well, I will obviously, I'll pass that on. And I mean, I have the most important part of me within Willow is the fact that I am Bob Wilson, former Arsenal goalkeeper. Okay, 28 years on the box and everything, but known in that respect, and therefore the ability to fundraise and have the contacts that I have had through my life, that's my benefit. the one who works every day in this office that we are sitting in, where I'm looking at you now. I'm actually at Meg's desk here. And she is the one who throughout has just, whenever we've hit a little bit of a low point, and I said, look, we've done 10 years now. Yeah, we've done 15 years. We've done 21 years. And with Megs, it's, come on, we can do this. Let's keep this going. And so, you know, I got, Sophie, I got the honor of an OBE. And for 2 days, I turned it down. Because it shouldn't have been me. Okay, if it was a joint OBE, fine. And it took my family and people around saying, Bob, this isn't just about you. This is about the Willow Foundation, what you've created and what we need to continue to do. So for crying out loud, stop being a big girl. And I got some stick, I can tell you, particularly from the family, and to say, look, yeah, Megs does deserve this honor as much as you, if not certainly more than me. But this is for Willow. There is no doubt we wouldn't be where we have a value, obviously a great value with my being who I am and have been and everything, and everybody who has helped me in my life. We have had an extraordinary life. One lucky boy, Sophie, I have to tell you that. But I do, yeah. Megs knows she wouldn't look for any honours or everything, but she certainly deserves it. Not least for the fact that she's been my girlfriend since she was. How she put up with me with all my ups and downs in football and the television world, because as you know, the media can be quite a brutal place at times, and ultimately
Certainly
you will
can.
get the knife stuck between your backs. I can't believe, by the way, Sophie, that one of the times we met, I'm sure, with Highbury Corner Cafe near the ground.
It was outside Highbury Corner. Usually I'd be ready with my pictures to show those, but this isn't about me. But yeah, it was amazing. When I saw you, I couldn't even believe it. I finally got to go to some games from California. It had been a year since I'd been, and to see you sitting outside Highbury Corner enjoying your pie and talking to everybody, it was one of the greatest days. And true gentleman, we talked for a little bit. You know, you promised next time you're down these ways you would come say hello, so that really was amazing, and thank you for sharing your life with us.
Well,
You know, it means the world to us Arsenal fans, and we will keep telling the story for generations to come. But it takes a lot, you know. You guys put yourselves, I don't think sometimes we appreciate what you go through as professional athletes. And as fans, we get very emotional. But today we're emotional here for different reasons. And thank you, Bob, for just being amazing.
Well, I've really enjoyed it. And Sophie, one of the things that I love more than anything else is that when everybody knows of my love for Arsenal, without Arsenal, there would be no Bob Wilson. But everybody that I know who has played for this club, regardless of playing for other clubs, because your career moves on, and one of them sitting there tonight, Kevin is sitting there, and I know that Kevin Campbell loves Arsenal Football Club like I love Arsenal Football Club, and there are a lot of us, and we also recognize that the real people that we owe our fame to or our inspiration to are the fans who somehow managed to pay extraordinary amounts to supporters and to make sure that we uphold everything that the club stands for. Yeah.
100%.
I'm just going to let Kev take us out now.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you that the humility that you have, Bob, is so humbling for me. You've always been somebody I've looked up to, even as a young boy at Arsenal, and to have you coming on to our podcast, sharing your story, sharing some of your tough times and your good times with Sophie, myself, and the squaddies, the fan base, is just absolutely fantastic. And I can't thank you and Megs enough, because I know you both come as a pair, and I love you both so dearly.
Oh,
Sophie,
I've loved it, Kevin. Loved it.
Well, Bob, we'll have to get you on again. maybe later on in the season when things are going a lot better as well, so we could talk all Arsenal.
Yeah,
then.
and I do think it's very appropriate that we couldn't get on at the beginning and I was 5 minutes late, you know? For
You escaped getting a card.
but for a goalkeeper of all things to be late to the ball, it's crazy.
You're late to the ball, but you did have your gloves, Bob.
Yeah.
So that's all right. You did have your gloves.
They're still here.
Sophie, thank you again for organising this. Obviously, someone like Bob coming on, proper Arsenal. You know, the word legend is often bandied about too easy.
It really is.
This man is a sporting legend, not only an Arsenal legend, a legend at the Arsenal, but he's a sporting legend as well, and he's iconic for us. And you squaddies, you know, the squaddies always brilliant, embrace whoever comes on, and Bob Wilson is definitely, Sir Bob Wilson is definitely one of our own, isn't he? He's a tremendous man. And squaddies, what I will do is, as always, I will salute you out because we thank you so much for supporting the Arsenal and this podcast. Thank you.
I'll join in.
Yeah.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.